perfect spot to see how these cars stand up under a series of hard, natural bumps. This particular 100 yards of road is as rough as you'll find anywhere. In the bump test, we send each car over the road in turn. First, the Windsor. Now the Oldsmobile. It really noses down after the first bump. Let's compare these two runs in split screen and slow motion so we can see how each car reacts after a bump. The Windsor levels off quickly. The Oldsmobile continues to pitch fore and aft the whole stretch. Next, the Mercury. This car does quite a bit of bottoming. In slow motion, we see the right front wheel of the Mercury leaves the road briefly after the initial bump. It leaves the road 3 more times in this stretch, and the car pitches all the way. Whereas the Windsor wheels never lose contact with the road and are always under control. The Buick Super. Buick has the standard coil spring suspension, same as last year. Compare them in slow motion. The Windsor rides steady, but Buick coil springs have very little control over bounce or pitching. Now the Chrysler Saratoga. Note the contrast. The wheels take a beating, but they stick to the road, and the body stays level. The Buick Roadmaster holds special interest because it's equipped with so-called air suspension at extra cost. But you can see for yourself that these airbags don't absorb the bumps compared to Saratoga with torsion air. They don't check the rocking motion. Airbags lack both control cushioning and snubbing qualities. Want to see something pretty? Watch this Imperial take the bumps, easily and evenly. Next is Cadillac. It noses heavily in front and pitches considerably. The Caddy is going to coil springs this year, both front and rear. A change for 58. But compared to the Imperial, they don't seem to help the ride much. There's a lot of seesawing still going on there. Now the Lincoln. It too has switched to coil springs all around for 58 in an attempt to improve the ride. But slow motion shows that compared to the Imperial, there is still a lot of rock and roll. There is just no car that rides as smoothly as a Chrysler with torsion air. Now it's our turn to ride. Let's climb on the camera car and I'll show you some real fun. This test will get these cars bouncing like a kangaroo with a pouch full of Tabasco. Here's a test to end all torture road tests. We built a series of bumps so engineered and so located as to put the greatest possible strain on every part of a car's suspension system. This road has more bumps and grinds built into it than a honky-tonk chorus girl. The cars follow each other at 40 miles an hour over one of the toughest courses possible. As you can see, these cars take a terrific beating, and the drivers don't have too short a time of it either. Let's watch these tests now and see some real action. The first 2 cars over this course will demonstrate how the lower-priced cars take this pounding. The Windsor is pacing the Mercury at 40 miles an hour. Here is the same run in slow motion. 2 cameras have been used to record this series of tests. This way, the results can be seen both in regular and slow motion. The torture road, as you can see, has been built to put cars through the severest kind of punishment. This is to compare the life and durability of the suspension systems. At slow motion camera speed, every detail of these cars' reactions can be studied. Note the difference between torsion air ride and coil spring ride. Now the Windsor hits the torture test with the Oldsmobile. At least it's in there pitching. As you can see, both front end, back end, and sideways. Now in slow motion, you can see how these cars are punished as they hit the ramps and bounce into the air, often with all four wheels off the ground, and then come crashing down with a jolt that would knock the teeth out of a curry comb. These ramps are designed to twist and throw the cars to the side, as well as up and down. See how the Oldsmobile pitches, and it's difficult to control as it hits these bumps. The Windsor hits and recovers almost instantly, and with ease. Here we see the Windsor and the Buick Super in action. Look at the difference. Now the same run in slow motion. And incidentally, this is the same Windsor that ran the first two tests. Remember, the Chrysler products travel this course again and again and again. Look, both cars are completely airborne. All four wheels off the ground. The important thing is the quickness of recovery after the car comes down. The Buick continues to toss and pitch, while the torsion air ride levels the Windsor almost immediately. The New Yorker leading the Buick Roadmaster equipped with airbag suspension. But something's going wrong. Let's see it again in slow motion. The test drivers have to be strapped into their seats because of the violent pitching and tossing, as you can see by watching the Buick. In fact, the Buick airbag broke loose. Watch the left rear wheel closely and you'll see it. There it goes, and there goes the whole left rear, sagging down to the rear axle. Now we see the Buick leaving the torture road. This is what happens when an airbag goes out. Next, the luxury cars. The Imperial sets the pace for the Lincoln. The Lincoln is all over the road. In slow motion, we see that the Lincoln is all up in the air over this test. And because of its soft suspension system, when it returns to Earth, it bottoms heavily, front and rear, and along its entire length. One of the rear coil springs was jarred completely out of its seat during this test, and both rear shocks were broken. The Imperial, not a scratch, and ready for another run. Now hang on to your hat, boy. The next one's a dilly. Just keep your eyes on the Cadillac. Now the heavyweight championship, Imperial versus Cadillac. Uh-oh, a 1-2 knockout. Let's see this in slow motion. Remember, this is as tough a test as you'll ever see, but one you would expect two quality cars to pass with ease. Incidentally, both rear shock absorber mounting brackets on the Cadillac have been torn loose from the frame. The Imperial with torsion air has taken the torture run for the second time and is ready to go again. Without a doubt, no other ride can compare with torsion air for safety, for comfort, for dependability.
Couple of days has certainly been an eye-opener to me.
Well, have you sit down? Thanks for coming with me to the airport. I appreciate your driving this Windsor back to L.A.
Oh, I jumped at the chance. The Chrysler Corporation cars remind me of Miss America. Anyone that good-looking doesn't have to know how to cook. But here's one that does.
Well, there's an old engineering proverb that you can't have a truly functional car without beautiful lines. There's a good example ahead of us. I'll pull over and show you what I mean. That jet plane over there, that doesn't look any more like the aeroplane of 20 years ago than Jane Mansfield resembles Little Eva. A plane that flies 1,000 miles an hour has to be shaped differently than a crate that seldom hits 100. Advancement in speed forced refinements and streamlining. In other words, more functional styling. Automobile styling has followed a somewhat similar development, especially with Chrysler and Imperial. That's what they mean by the forward look.